My love, there's something I've carried in silence for far too long. Every time I looked into your eyes, I felt it. This truth, heavy and beautiful, but terrifying all at once. I wanted to tell you, I really did. But fear has a strange way of stealing words from the heart. Fear of losing you, fear of not being enough, fear that maybe, just maybe, the truth would change everything between us. But tonight, I can't hide anymore. Because loving you has taught me something deeper than fear. It has taught me honesty. It has shown me that real love doesn't live in perfection, it lives in vulnerability, in the quiet confessions, in the moments where we stand exposed, hoping the other person still chooses us. So here I am, not as someone perfect, not as someone fearless, but as someone who loves you so deeply that I'm finally ready to speak the truth. I was always afraid to tell you. My love, there is a truth that has lived quietly inside me, growing in the spaces between my breaths, hiding in the pauses of my words, waiting for the moment I would finally be brave enough to let it exist outside of me. I've carried it in silence, not because it wasn't real, but because it felt too real, too powerful, something that could change everything with just a few spoken words. You see, loving you was never something simple for me. It wasn't just smiles and laughter and the warmth of your presence. It was deeper than that. It was the kind of feeling that settles into your bones, that rewrites the way your heart beats, that makes you question who you were before you ever met this person, who now means everything. And that's where the fear began. Because when something becomes everything, losing it becomes unimaginable. There were nights when I wanted to tell you everything, nights when I would lie awake, staring into the dark, replaying every moment we've shared, your voice, your laughter, the way your eyes soften when you look at me. And in those moments, the truth would rise to the surface, almost spilling out of me. But I would hold it back again and again, convincing myself that silence was safer than honesty. Not because I doubted you, but because I doubted myself. I kept asking myself, what if I'm not enough for her truth? What if the version of me you see isn't the whole picture? What if the truth I carry changes the way you feel about me? So I chose silence, not realizing that silence has its own weight. It builds walls where there should be bridges. It creates distance in places that once felt close. And even when I was right there with you, a part of me felt far away, trapped behind the words I was too afraid to say. But the truth is, loving you changed me. It made me realize that love isn't about being perfect. It isn't about having everything figured out or always saying the right thing. Love is about showing up completely, even with your fears, your flaws, your uncertainties. It's about letting someone see the parts of you that you've spent your whole life trying to hide. And that's what scared me the most, because the truth I was afraid to tell you isn't just a sentence. It isn't something simple that can be said and forgotten. It's a piece of my soul. It's the part of me that has been shaped by every past hurt, every mistake, every moment that taught me to be careful with my heart. There were times before you when I trusted too easily, when I gave too much of myself to people who didn't understand the weight of what they were given. And when those things broke, they didn't just leave scars. They left doubts. Doubts about whether love was ever meant to stay or if it was always destined to fade. So when you came into my life, I didn't just fall in love with you. I fought it, not because I didn't want you, but because I wanted you too much. I told myself to be careful, to not get too close, to not let you see everything. But you have this way about you, something quiet, something real, something that made all my defenses feel unnecessary. You didn't force anything, you didn't demand anything, you just stayed. And somehow, that was enough to slowly break down the walls I had built around myself. Still, there was that one truth, the one I kept hidden even as everything else became visible. It was there, in the way I looked at you a little longer than I should, in the way my voice softened when I said your name, in the way I cared, sometimes more than I knew how to show. But I never said it completely, not in the way it deserved to be said. because saying it would mean giving you the power to see me fully, to understand just how deeply you've affected me, to realize that you're not just someone I care about, but someone who has become a part of who I am. And that kind of vulnerability, it's not easy. It means risking everything. It means accepting that once the truth is out, there's no taking it back. No hiding behind silence. No pretending that things are simpler than they really are. And I was afraid of that. Afraid that the truth might be too heavy, too much, too overwhelming. But what I've come to understand, slowly, painfully, is that hiding the truth doesn't protect love. It weakens it. Because love needs honesty the way we need air. Without it, something starts to fade, quietly, slowly, until what once felt alive begins to feel distant. And I never want that with you. I never want to look back at what we had and wonder what could have been if I had just been brave enough to speak. I never want to lose something real because I was too afraid to risk it. So here I am, standing in front of you, not as someone who has it all figured out, but as someone who finally understands that love isn't about certainty, it's about courage. The courage to be seen, the courage to be honest, the courage to say the things that scare you the most, because they matter the most. And the truth I was afraid to tell you is that loving you isn't something I can control. It's not something I can turn off or minimize or keep at a safe distance. It's something that has grown beyond my fears, beyond my doubts, beyond every reason I once had to hold back. It's in the way you've changed the way I see the world. In the way your presence brings a kind of peace I didn't know I was searching for. In the way I think about you even in moments when I try not to. And that scares me, because it means you matter more than anything I've ever tried to protect myself from. It means that if I lose you, I don't just lose someone I care about. I lose a part of myself. And that's the truth I've been afraid to say out loud. Not because it's weak, but because it's powerful. Because it means trusting you with something that has never been this open before. Because it means believing that what we have is strong enough to hold the weight of something real. I don't know what the future looks like. I don't know if everything will always be easy or if we'll always have the answers. But I do know this. What I feel for you is real, and keeping it hidden doesn't make it safer. It only makes it lonelier. So I'm choosing to let go of that fear. I'm choosing to trust you with my truth. I'm choosing to believe that love, real love, isn't something we protect by hiding, but something we protect by sharing. Even when it's hard, even when it's uncertain, even when it feels like stepping into the unknown. There is something dangerous about silence, something that feels harmless in the beginning, almost protective, like a shield we hide behind when our hearts are not ready to be seen. It tells us we are safe here, in the quiet, in the unspoken, in the spaces where nothing can be questioned because nothing has been revealed. But silence doesn't stay innocent for long. At first, it's just a pause, a moment where you choose not to say what's on your mind. Then it becomes a habit, something you lean on when the truth feels too heavy. And before you realize it, silence starts to grow roots inside your love, wrapping itself around the things you were meant to share, slowly tightening until what once felt open and alive begins to feel distant and uncertain. I learned that the hard way. There were so many moments when the truth sat right at the edge of my lips, waiting for me to let it out. Moments when my heart was speaking louder than anything else. But I chose to quiet it, not because the truth wasn't important, but because I was afraid of what it might change. I told myself, there's still time. I told myself, maybe later. I told myself, it's better this way. But later has a way of becoming never when fear is the one making your decisions. And the truth doesn't disappear just because you don't speak it. It lingers. It shows up in the way you hesitate before you say something simple, in the way your eyes search for reassurance that you never asked for, in the way your heart feels heavier, even in moments that are supposed to feel light. Because deep down, you know there's something missing. Not in the love itself, but in the way it's being lived. Silence creates a version of love that looks complete on the outside, but feels unfinished on the inside. It builds something that appears strong, but is quietly fragile because it's missing the one thing that gives love its true strength: honesty. And the longer you stay silent, the more that absence grows. It starts to rewrite things. It rewrites the way you connect. It rewrites the way you understand each other. It rewrites the meaning of moments that could have been deeper, more real, more alive. A simple conversation that could have brought you closer never happens. A truth that could have built trust remains hidden. A feeling that could have been shared stays locked inside, slowly fading under the weight of being ignored. And one day you look at the person you love and everything is still there, but something feels different. Not broken, just quieter, less certain, as if the space between you has grown, not because of something that was said, but because of everything that wasn't. That's what silence does. It doesn't always destroy love loudly. Sometimes it erases it slowly. And the most painful part is realizing that it didn't have to be that way. Realizing that the truth you were afraid to speak was never the thing that would have broken your love. It was the silence around it that did the damage. Because truth, no matter how heavy, has a way of creating clarity. It might shake things for a moment, it might even hurt, but it is real. And real things, even when they are difficult, give love something solid to stand on. Silence, on the other hand, creates illusions. It makes you believe things are okay when they're not. It makes you assume instead of understand. It replaces connection with guesswork. And over time, those guesses become the story you both start to believe. A story that was never fully written by truth. And that's how love gets rewritten, not by betrayal, not by loss, but by the quiet absence of honesty. That's why speaking the truth matters. Not when it's convenient, not when it feels easy, but when it feels impossible. Because those are the moments that define what your love becomes. It takes courage to speak when your voice feels uncertain, to express what's in your heart when you don't know how it will be received, to stand in front of someone you care about and say, "This is who I am. This is what I feel. This is the truth I've been holding back." It's not easy. It never is. But love was never meant to be built on what's easy. It's meant to be built on what's real. And real love can handle the truth. It doesn't run from it. It doesn't break because of it. It grows through it. Because when you speak your truth, you give the other person a chance to truly know you, not just the parts that are comfortable or polished, but the parts that are raw, uncertain, and deeply human. And that kind of connection, it's rare. It's the kind of connection that doesn't fade when things get hard, because it was never built on pretending. It was built on honesty, on the willingness to show up as you are, even when it feels risky, on the understanding that love isn't about avoiding difficult conversations, it's about having them with care, with respect, with the intention to grow together instead of apart. So speak. Speak even when your voice shakes. Speak even when the words feel imperfect. Speak even when fear tries to convince you that silence is safer. Because silence is not safety. Silence is distance in disguise. And the longer you stay there, the harder it becomes to find your way back to each other. Your truth matters, not just to you, but to the love you're trying to build. It deserves to be heard. It deserves to exist outside of your thoughts. It deserves the chance to shape something real between you and the person you care about. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't wait until everything feels certain. Because love doesn't grow in certainty. It grows in honesty, in vulnerability, in the courage to say what needs to be said before silence has the chance to change what could have been something beautiful into something that feels incomplete, something that feels distant, something that feels like a story that was never fully told, even though it had all the potential in the world to be something unforgettable, something deeply meaningful, something real enough to last if only the truth had been given the space to breathe instead of being buried under the weight of hesitation and fear that never truly protected anything but instead slowly took away the very essence of what love was trying to become. My love, if there's one thing I've come to understand through all of this, it's that love was never meant for the perfect version of us. It was never waiting for the day we would have everything figured out, when our fears would disappear, when our past would no longer echo in the present. Love doesn't arrive at perfection. It begins in imperfection, and it asks only one thing from us in return: courage. Not the loud kind of courage that the world celebrates, not the kind that stands on stages or proves itself through grand gestures, but the quiet courage, the kind that lives in the heart, the kind that shows up when you feel uncertain, when your hands are shaking, when your voice feels small, and yet you choose to stay, to speak, to feel anyway. Because loving someone, truly loving them, means allowing yourself to be seen without guarantees. And that's where it becomes difficult. We spend so much of our lives trying to become enough. Enough for the world, enough for expectations, enough for the people who came before and left us questioning our worth. We build versions of ourselves that are easier to accept, easier to present, easier to protect. We hide the messy parts, the doubts, the fears, the scars we don't fully understand. And then love comes in, real love. And suddenly all of those hidden parts start to matter. Because love doesn't just see what's on the surface, it reaches deeper. It asks questions we're not always ready to answer. It brings light into places we've kept in the dark. It gently and sometimes painfully reminds us that being loved isn't about being flawless, it's about being real. But being real requires courage. It means letting someone see you when you're not at your best. It means admitting when you're afraid. It means saying, I don't have it all together, and trusting that it won't make you less worthy of love. And that's not easy, especially when you've spent so much time believing the opposite. I used to think that if I could just be better, stronger, more certain, then love would feel safe. That if I could eliminate my flaws, hide my weaknesses, control my emotions, then nothing could go wrong. But love doesn't work that way, because love isn't built on control. It's built on trust, and trust doesn't come from perfection. It comes from honesty, from showing up as you are, even when you're unsure of how it will be received, from choosing connection over protection, from understanding that the person who truly loves you isn't looking for a perfect version of you. They're looking for you, your thoughts, your fears, your truths, even the ones you're still trying to understand yourself. There were so many times when I held back parts of me because I thought they would make me less lovable. I filtered my words. I softened my feelings. I tried to present a version of myself that felt easier, simpler, safer, but all that did was create distance, because the more I tried to be perfect, the less real I became. And love can't fully exist in something that isn't real. It needs authenticity the way a flame needs air. Without it, something starts to fade, not all at once, not dramatically, but slowly, quietly, until what once felt strong begins to feel fragile. That's when I realized love doesn't ask me to be perfect. It asks me to be brave, brave enough to say what I feel, even when the words aren't polished, brave enough to admit when I'm hurting instead of pretending I'm fine, brave enough to open my heart, even knowing that it could be hurt, because that's the truth no one talks about enough. Love always carries risk. There is no version of love where you are completely protected, no way to guarantee that everything will go exactly as you hope, no promise that your heart will never feel pain. And yet, we choose it anyway, not because we're certain, but because something inside us knows that love, even with its risks, is worth more than a life spent hiding from it. That's where courage lives, not in knowing the outcome, but in choosing to move forward without knowing, choosing to love without having all the answers, choosing to trust that what you're building is stronger than the fears trying to hold you back. And I know sometimes it feels easier to stay guarded, to keep a part of yourself hidden, to avoid saying too much, feeling too deeply, risking too much. Because if you don't give everything, you can't lose everything. Or at least that's what it feels like. But the truth is, when you hold back in love, you don't just protect yourself from pain, you also limit how deeply you can experience it. You limit the connection, you limit the intimacy, you limit the possibility of something truly meaningful. And over time, that limitation starts to feel like distance. Not because the love isn't there, but because it's not being fully lived. That's why courage matters more than perfection. Because perfection creates walls, but courage breaks them. It allows love to breathe, to expand, to become something more than just a safe version of what it could be. Courage says, I'm scared, but I'm here. I don't know what will happen, but I'm willing to try. Courage says, this matters enough to me that I won't hide from it. And that's what love responds to, not flawless words or perfect actions, but real presence, real effort, real vulnerability. Because when two people choose courage over perfection, something powerful happens. They stop trying to impress each other and start understanding each other. They stop hiding their flaws and start accepting them. They stop fearing the truth and start building something strong enough to hold it. That kind of love, it doesn't break easily because it's not built on an illusion. It's built on reality, on the understanding that both people are human, both people are learning, both people are imperfect, and that's okay. More than okay, it's what makes the connection real. So if there's something I want you to know, something I wish I had understood sooner, it's this. You don't have to be perfect to be loved. You don't have to have everything figured out. You don't have to hide the parts of you that feel uncertain or unfinished. All you need is the courage to be yourself, fully, honestly, without pretending, because the right kind of love, the kind that lasts, the kind that grows, the kind that feels like home, doesn't ask you to change who you are at your core. It asks you to show it, to trust it, to believe that who you are, even in your most vulnerable moments, is enough. And that belief, that quiet, steady belief, is what turns love into something real, something lasting, something that doesn't need perfection to survive because it was never built on the idea of perfection in the first place, but on the choice to stay open, to stay honest, to stay brave, even when everything inside you is tempted to retreat into safety instead of stepping forward into something deeper, something uncertain, something beautifully real that only exists when you choose courage over the illusion of being flawless and finally allow yourself to be seen exactly as you are without holding anything back.